That is Bone. They're out of Austin, Texas, and they are the sort of featured artist on here tonight. And joining me is my buddy Bob, all the way from Appleton, Wisconsin.
Bonerland.
Bonerland. I kind of like what they said. They sent me the links to their music and whatnot, and sent me a bunch of music files. And please let us know when you play or review it. We'd love to promote you too. We are also here to learn. Constructive criticism is welcome. Thanks for your time. We really do appreciate it. You know, I really like it when I get emails like that.
Definitely.
You know, that's a professional way to look at promoting oneself, don't you think?
Yeah, you got to be open to suggestions. Not necessarily, people criticize all the time, but helpful suggestions are always welcome. If that clarifies anything.
Indifferent Monkey says, am I the only one on the planet listening to this channel? It says watching now. Well, we slowly gather people as the evening progresses, and some people that watch the show on a regular basis, we broadcast at a time for some of them that is Betty Bye time for them.
And it all depends on when the work release group therapy gets out.
Yeah. I'm thinking about jail time too. Like people,
right.
Yeah, for sure. So this week we're going to talk about a few things. We're going to talk about one of them being metadata.
Boy,
I know
what a convoluted path that is.
Here's another one that I want to talk about. This one's ISRC codes.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think about that one? Is that a loaded?
It's just more stuff to pile on your plate when you release music.
Moron. Oh man, I love it. I love how you like come up with those clever little names every week.
I don't know. I don't know.
And then there's this. Then there's this. This one here. This is the one that I always when I remember like I'm looking for talking points. All I got to do is like scour your profile.
Oh man, that's a mistake.
I creep your profile at least once or twice a week looking for fodder, right? And here's one here that you posted. I thought this was a really good one. And you probably read the whole article. I haven't got into the whole article just yet because it caught my eye today. And the way my week's been already is just like, ah. Um, anyway, I'll share it here, and here it is. This is the Gibson win court ruling over iconic guitar shapes.
That was interesting
Yeah.
because I didn't even know that was going on. I didn't know that. Yeah, the company that owns Dean Guitars and Luna
Okay.
were taken to court by Gibson, and because, well, they along with everybody else has a Les Paul shaped guitar. I think everybody does that, don't they?
You know what, Les Paul. I mean, I don't know. Was what's the knockoff? The Epiphone. Wasn't the Epiphone the first to do a copy of the Les Paul?
Yeah, man, there's some mixed signals about that. Who was actually first? But yeah, I mean, the Epiphone line was just the entry level for Gibson.
Here's an interesting thing. I have owned both a Gibson Les Paul Deluxe, and the current Les Paul I'm playing is actually an Epiphone Les Paul. And the interesting thing about that is a friend of mine does like research on guitars and ran the serial number of my guitar. It was actually made in the Gibson factory and has all Gibson hardware on it. Go figure that one out.
Huh? I mean, darn, it wasn't like a Japanese or a Chinese.
No. It was actually made in the factory. It's a 1986 Gibson. Well, it's a
Epiphone.
Epiphone Les Paul, but the humbuckers in it are like killer. They are like the hottest humbuckers I've ever heard, and they've got the
Really?
chrome. They got the chrome covers on them. Yeah, it's really a nice guitar.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
sort of like
I know a lot of guitar players actually prefer the Epiphone over the Gibson.
some of them play better. I have the same thing. I have a knockoff Strat. It's an 86 as well, and it's a Fender. What was their entry level again?
Like it starts with an S.
Yeah, I got it hanging on the wall here. I can run back and check. I'm just trying to think of the name of it. Oh shit.
Oh, I'm an idiot.
Me too.
Starcaster?
Yeah.
No.
No, Starcaster was one of them. There's another one though.
Yeah.
Hang on a second. Entertain the troops for a second. Do a song and
Okay.
dance.
Well, I can't dance because I got a bad back, but anyway, I know exactly what Ken's referring to. And it seems like more companies have actually copied the Stratocaster body style than any other. I know there's slight variations of it, but
Yeah. Squire Strat.
Squire, geez.
And it's
Isn't
funny
Squire
because
doesn't Squire produce the the Starcaster?
yeah, there's a Starcaster as well. And here's the interesting thing. So my understanding about Epiphone is to Les Paul what the Squire is to the Strat Standard, the American Standard Strat. And a buddy of mine went out. He paid $2,700 for a brand new Strat, a brand new Fender Strat. And he likes playing my Squire that I paid $200 for back in the day.
Wow.
Yeah. it's crazy. I bought my Squire for $200 case and all, and then I had some custom work done on it though. I had like
Oh yeah.
a white graphite nut put on it and a new tremolo bridge system. But man, does that guitar play! And it's like a bird's eye maple neck on it. It's beautiful.
Right.
Um,
I think the neck is the whole thing. You know, once in a while something comes out of the factory where the neck is just perfect for somebody, you know,
yeah,
no matter who made it, then the neck makes it easy to play.
yeah. Neck and fretting are like big deals for guitar
Right,
players.
right, right.
Um,
It's all in the
so
neck.
so
Give me
did
some neck.
Gibson obviously won their case then, right?
They did. I don't know why they had such a problem with Dean, but I know that LTD guitars,
Right.
they've copied Gibson for years, and tons of others. But anyway,
It,
I did not know that, but it was fairly interesting.
and the copies on the guitars came about when the original patents ran out on those particular designs. So I don't know, like I don't know how long a typical U.S. patent runs.
Yeah, I'm not sure either. Interesting side note. Speaking about limitations, I did a story on Tony Basil earlier this week, and she got her copyrights back from the song Mickey. And evidently, copyrights run out for publishers' rights every 35 years. So she had to wait 35 years, and then she regained her publishers' rights for
And she
Mickey.
was able to apply to become the sole publisher of her own music.
Right, right. And that's another process in of itself. But I did not know that after 35 years, and you know, all of these artists that are currently selling their catalogs for, well, Justin Timberlake's not the latest one for $100 million.
Yeah.
I don't think they're looking 35 years down the road.
You know, the whole thing is kind of messed up to me because I really think that, you know, when publishing rights go on a particular song, unless the person actually originally wrote the song and recorded it and own all the publishing rights to it, I think that that should belong to that individual forever, and they should never have to give up those rights. Uh,
Correct.
but
There should be
but
a way around that.
But when a record label takes over those rights or a publishing company takes over those rights, I think that should be renewable every so often so
And
that
it could be if artists would stand up for themselves and say, well, this is kind of what we want, and you know, negotiate with the record label.
I think it just should be stipulated. I mean,
Yeah,
that no one should be allowed to have a monopoly on that except the person who actually
yeah.
came out with it, right? The writer and the publisher, for sure.
Record label executives are known snakes.
No doubt
So,
about
you
that.
know, they dangle that carrot in front of you, and you know, just everybody wants to be famous and have celebrity. And when they dangle that carrot and they say, well, if we can give you this, if you give us the rights to your song so that we can publish it and distribute it, and they don't allow for any negotiations.
Yeah, so they can publish it and distribute it so that they can own it and do whatever they want with it.
Right. They make tons of money, you know, royalties and uh, uh, what's the word I'm looking for when they use it for commercials and stuff like that, licensing.
Yeah, I work with an artist currently who originally had a contract with Capitol Records. Then Capitol got bought out by EMI. EMI got bought out by Universal Group. And aside from taking some of their early tracks and putting it on a compilation, like a Masters compilation of, I think it was Masters of Rock or Masters of Metal. Aside from that, they've done nothing with their tracks.
Huh. They've let
And
them sit on the shelf, huh?
yeah, and they won't give him his rights back to. It's technically his music, but you know they want mega bucks for something they're sitting on a shelf, right?
Huh.
but he could definitely benefit from it now that we're publishing their catalog of music. So there's some EMI Capitol Record stuff that we can't get our hands on because it's sort of locked behind door number 3.
Oh, really?
So that becomes a bit problematic. However, we've talked about taking those tracks and re-recording them and re-releasing them.
You could always do that. You could always do that. Could you get sued for plagiarism?
Well, I think the thing is that you can change the song title, for example.
Oh,
So you could take a different phrase out of the song and change the song title. Plus, it probably would be recorded a whole lot different. It would probably be like that whole Led Zeppelin thing. Remember that?
yeah. I was just going to bring that up.
Yeah, it'd probably be something like they'd have a hard time proving that you change enough of it. I think typically a change of something like 10% overall. So
I
who's to say?
suppose if the record labels took you to court because you re-recorded the song, you could always say, "Well, I wrote the song, so how can that stand legally if you wrote the song?"
Yeah, I mean, here's an interesting thing. So my one of my talking points tonight was to talk about metadata, and I haven't seen you lament about it, but I've seen other radio show owners, hosts, DJs lament about the fact that they'll get tracks from artists or bands and they're not properly tagged.
Yeah, I used to bitch about that a lot.
What do you mean about that? What to you guys, what does that mean to have a track properly tagged?
Well, there's a difference there between tagging your music with metadata and tagging your music for airplay. And the end that I'm coming from is it's a simple it's a simple string of the way you titled your music and your band, so that when it comes across the player on the website or on the app, it gives the name of the song and the band. If you don't properly tag your song here, then what you get is unknown and a bunch of letters, so that if somebody's tuned into it, they're going to go, well, who if is this, and they don't know. So I'm always getting on bands to, please, it's real easy. It's artist space hyphen space song title.
Yeah, and there's actually other things you can put into the metadata on a file. That now you can easily do that on any MP3 file by certainly right clicking on it, going into properties, and you can tag all that stuff on the file itself.
Yeah, exactly.
And to get those basic things in there. So you're saying the name of the artist, the name of the track, the number of the track, probably if it's off an album, would help, right?
Right.
Anything else?
And let me share this. Can I share this real quick?
Go ahead. You gonna screen share?
Screen share. I'll do this.
There we go.
Can you see that?
There it is. I see it right there. Oh,
well, I got it.
It's so easy.
Yeah, and you noticed it's there is no name of the band.
Exactly.
And somebody could steal this. There's no copyright. There's nothing. Yep. There's no information. And somebody could steal this and go to court and say, well, we wrote it first.
Exactly.
So.
And I know where that came from.
I mean, when you send out your music, make sure your name's attached to it.
And here's the interesting thing. Sometimes you make the assumption when the music is already sent to you prepackaged in an MP3, you make the assumption that it's already been properly meta tagged.
Yeah. Well, yeah, you can't do that.
And you know what? It was really funny because uploaded something for an artist a few months back, and I said, "Are the tracks meta tagged?" And he's like, "What's that?"
Right. Well, yeah, is that up to like the person that engineers the recording and saves the final version after mixed down all that stuff? Are they responsible for attaching the correct meta for that?
Yeah, most DAWs have it right in there when you render the file. Now, depending what they're doing, like for example, I use Reaper. Reaper
Reaper.
has Reaper has a way of rendering waves directly into MP3s, and when it does it, you can embed the metadata, and then it gives you all these fields. You can use IDE. The interesting thing about IDE data is that IDE data does not let you populate the copyright section. But what it does is it gives you enough standardized data that properly identifies who it belongs to, who the people are on there, and who gets the credit for writing the song, et cetera, right?
Right.
So that information is there. So there's this one here. It's called, this is off SoundCharge blog, How Broken Metadata Affects the Music Industry and What We Can Do About It. Right? That's the jump off point there.
What broken? So, in other words, you're saying that it's not just one thing; it's several things that have to be included in your metadata filing.
Well, there's a lot of things you can include in it, and the thing is that you can include even more data if your MP3 files are going to be used to write a CD. Okay, so you can even include in the metadata the album cover. You can include the back of the album, so that when it goes on an MP or on a CD and it's played, you can actually view the art while it's playing. And
Right. And that once again is the player interpreting the data that it receives.
yeah, here's an interesting aside though. So aggregators like DistroKid, where a lot of people upload their music, to mainstream download and streaming services, they don't accept that part of the data.
Oh, they don't.
No, and I found that out purely by accident. So an artist sent me an MP3 and it had everything but the kitchen sink on it. I mean, it literally had photographs, it had album art, all kinds of stuff on it. And it kept failing to upload. And I'm like, why is it failing to upload? And it kept giving me this unknown error. And I'm looking at it, okay, I can't find anything in their literature about why this would be failing. So then I just went out on a limb and I re-rendered the MP3s and re-meta tagged them, but left off the photographs and the album art, and magically it uploaded like a charm.
Ah.
So there are some that don't accept certain pieces of metadata. So I think the important thing is to keep it simple and straightforward. That whole KISS principle.
Right. What do you think about this then? I'll bring up this screen. This will be my last one.
No, you put as many as you want up, buddy. I'll
This is
we
what
will share 'em.
this is what I use after before I upload to the station every Monday. I use MP3 tag, and I just got one song up there for an example, but it's got all of the categories: artist, title, album, artist, blah blah blah, all of that stuff. Is that what generally what you need to put on a CD?
Yeah, I mean that's important information to have there, and the more information, like you can't have too much information for a conversion to CD if you're actually going to burn CDs or send them someplace to have them burned,
Oh,
right?
ah,
The cool thing about CDs is that there's not, no such thing really as too much information, but it's interesting on digital files how differently they operate and what they require. And you're right, like when you play in a digital file, you should see the name of the artist. You're probably not going to see the copyright information. That's really just embedded in the
right, right.
in the
So that it
file
comes up
itself.
in the properties window, right?
Yeah, you'll see that stuff in the properties window if it's got a copyright lock on it. Um, Most people don't, because if you've got, for example, now what metadata allows you to do when you're putting in from the DAW, you're allowed to attach the ISRC codes. And
ISRC.
the ISRC is sort of a digital stamp indicating that's an authentic track owned by that particular artist, if they register their own IRC codes. And you can do it. So I think it's free.
And does that also track sales?
So we're gonna get into that. I believe so.
Okay.
I believe so. I want to really quickly go over what it says here about the 3 different types of metadata. So there's descriptive metadata, which you already said. Ownership and performing rights metadata. So if it's SOCAN or BMI or ASCAP on there, you could put that information in there. It might show up, and then again, it might not show up, but it's at least embedded in the file. And then recommendation metadata. Now, they talk about 4 different areas of problems with metadata. One is lack of database standardization.
Oh, God.
I know, don't get you started, right? Multiplicity of the music data itself, shortfallings of music ID standards, and human errors. I've seen tracks misspelled. I've seen tracks where the track, if it's a number of tracks on an album, I see places there where it's not. Oh, yes. Oh, you're watching this tonight, Brent. Brent's watching this from Red Film. So Brent is one of the guys that sent me this stuff. And there's that metadata, and metadata, as Brent says, is
It's a Czechoslovakian dance.
yeah, Czechoslovakian dance. It's other data that you can put on the file. That metadata, that metadata, was what prevented me from uploading the MP3s. And the interesting thing about it is that when the artist originally uploaded the music before, they uploaded WAV files instead of MP3. So on DistroKid, they uploaded WAV files. Well, here's another thing that nobody knows, or very few people think about, is that when you upload a WAV file to CD Baby or Ditto or any of those, right, TuneCore, you're going out of focus there. What happened there? There you go. You got your autofocus on. The interesting thing is that the upload aggregator compresses the data into MP3, and the compression that they use actually degrades the value of the track.
I'm sorry, I was looking at my setting. I
That's okay.
apologize.
So the value of the track, or the quality of the track, actually decreases if you allow the aggregator to do the compression to MP3.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So if you do your own rendering of MP3s, you can do a lot of things that preserve a lot of the audio quality of the original WAV file. We know WAV files play better, they're smoother, they sound nicer, there's more dynamic range in them. But for guys like you, storage of WAV files is a nightmare.
Right. We would run out of server space fairly fast.
Yeah, and the same. I mean, even though I'm not limited on the website, and I would love to offer WAV file playing, when people are downloading, music to these, right, to an iPhone or to an Android, they want relatively small files, because you could download 500 songs in your personal music library on your phone, and it takes up next to no disk space at all.
Right.
Right. So
those things.
So there are some things that can be done to fix metadata, and important to keep track of the metadata from the get-go, finalize agreements and define splits before a song leaves the studio. So most of the metadata can be put on the file if it's rendered in the studio. But I've got people that have sent me WAV files and they're not even meta tagged. There's no metadata in them. And so it's important to have it even in those files, because if you're going to upload WAV files, you better have metadata in them.
What about the DIY artists who record in their bedroom or their studio and they have a final product? What are they to do there?
Well, I think the thing is that you can most DAWs have a way of being able to put simple metadata in. But you gave a perfect example of that. And I'll just grab an interesting. I'll just grab one here. Well, I'll just
grab it. I mean, it's almost to the point where maybe when you're done with your mix down and everything, to find somebody that's schooled in the metadata. Or can you do it yourself?
It's pretty easy, and the stuff that you're talking about is pretty basic, right? It's actually pretty basic stuff that anybody could literally add. I'm just going to go in here and I'm going to find one that I was working on, and then I'll just show you an example of it. It's probably easier if I just throw it up on the screen and people can see it. It's very similar to what you saw, and you can actually look at it by taking the file, right-clicking on it, and opening up the properties on it. And that'll give you a good sense of, of that particular one. So I'll go in here to these MP3s and we'll just go grab this one here. So here's an example. And so that artist that you showed me a couple of minutes ago, where it wasn't there, right? The metadata was missing.
That was totally random, by the way.
No, but it's interesting because that was a conversation we ended up having, right? And the person themselves didn't even realize that. So I'm gonna, oh come on, just share the screen. There we go. There it is. There. Hopefully people can see that. But there's the song title, the contributing artist, the album, the track number, the genre, the length of the song, even the bit rate. Those things can identify the song, and then who the composers are. Those are the most basic and most important pieces of data. So there's like five or six basic pieces that I think are really key and important. And if people went to that extent, we probably get a better standardization over the rights of it, right? And Brent has a point here. He says data can be added in mastering, and you're absolutely correct. It can be added in mastering, but it can also be done at the rendering point once the WAV files are rendered. And then the final WAV file, you can embed metadata in the final WAV file, which would be the master. And then you can also do the same thing in the master, what would be considered to be the master MP3. Now, what I have never seen, because I don't know how it affects file sharing when it comes to download and streaming services, you can actually lock those files down completely. So they become read-only files.
Yeah, it says that in the little window there on the properties at the bottom. It's got unblock and stuff like that.
Yeah. And you can make them read-only files. So that means they can't be altered. No one can go in and change the data on it or whatever for the purposes of pirating, all that other cool stuff. So that
Johnny Depp was a pirate.
He was. So that, I think that kind of covers most of it. Talks about music metadata. Here's another example of it. I'm going to post this up for people to look at anyway, so that they can get it in the link. In fact, I'll just throw it in the chat right now, and then it's there. it's an interesting article. It's got some good stuff to share, and it'll probably help people to figure out what kind of stuff
Do it.
they can put in there. But there's all
Do it.
kinds of stuff. You can even put the
Do it.
year that it was recorded, right? The year that
Do it.
the recording was like, do it till you're satisfied.
But you got to
Come on
do it,
and do it.
man.
Come on and do it. And then the other one is Brent sent me this one. I love when artists inform themselves, and of course Brent's been in the music industry for a long time, so he knows. He's probably forgotten more than I know. This is IRSC system is key to the administration of rights for sound and music, video recordings globally in the digital environment. So it's the International Standard Recording Code. And then it goes on to describe, a whole lot of it, right? It's intentionally standardized under the ISO. It's well established, widely accepted internationally, and simple to use. IRC is compatible with many different databases, label copy systems, hardware, electronics, et cetera, So it tells you a lot of things about IRSC and why it's important to you. I also think that IRSC, along with UPC codes, is used to be able to track sales.
Yeah.
I mean,
That's what I thought it was for.
Here's the part that I don't like. I don't like the fact that a lot of music that you end up seeing people winning awards for is based solely upon sales of the music. It's really interesting because did you ever hear of the band Triumph?
Mm-hmm.
So Triumph was a Canadian rock band, and Rick Emmett was the lead guitar player in the band, and his dad bought 1,000 of their albums when they released their first album to help them with their record sales, right? And then he gave them all away to his friends, right?
Yeah.
But the thing about that is that they track sales, but sales to me shouldn't be the only, formulation that goes into determining whether or not a song is good and whether it should win some kind of an award. It should be based on a lot of other things. Stuff you and I've talked about. Quality of the recording, the musicianship on the recording. You know, a lot of people can make really, really good, especially now, can make really, really good multi-track recordings in their bedroom studio.
Yeah. Well, it used to be when rock radio exploded in the late 50s, early 60s, the only rating system they had then were the number of requests that they got at the radio stations. And the DJ would have to write down every time they played a song, and every time it was requested, they have to write down a log. And that's what they determined the charts from. But that slowly went away, and Billboard started turning that over to sales, which can be manipulated easier from Billboard's point of view than independent DJs all over the country.
Yeah, and here's an interesting, Keith Hill makes a really good point here. He says these codes are valid, but some entities won't work with you if you're affiliated with that. Lots to learn and know. And some of it also goes back to track sales or to track plays through things like SOCAN, through BMI, ASCAP, and all of those. And then they go after whoever's playing the tracks to collect performance rights royalties. And that is problematic because there are a lot of radio stations that don't pay performance rights royalties because A, they don't have deep pockets. B, they sponsor themselves. They don't have any ads. Right?
Right.
So, it's an interesting dilemma that we find ourselves in. And I think that as the world of independent music continues to widen and explode, who knows whether those standards are going to be in existence down the road.
No, I'm sure they'll evolve
Yeah,
somehow.
I mean, they may have to evolve. Um,
Is that SoScan?
I think he means SOCAN does not recognize. Um, so, I mean, it's one of those things where you look at it and go, is this a real industry standard that's required? Um, and for a lot of artists out there who just want to get their music out in front of the world, the most important thing is to have proof on the tracks that they actually own them.
Right. Right.
Right. So if they're the publisher, that information is on there. On ours, when I send the tracks out, I put myself and the artist as co-publishers. That way, it's tracked back definitely to one entity that's a registered business. So to me, that adds some validity to things because a lot of artists don't even register their businesses. There's a few that do.
Yeah.
In the states, that's LLC, right? Is that correct?
Right.
In Canada, you have to do you have to register as an artist. You can register as a sole proprietorship, but you can also register as a corporation, as a corporate entity as well. And of course, to do papers of incorporation, you pretty much have to have a lawyer do that for you. I don't know how that works in the States. Is it the same thing?
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
Um, and so unless you're prepared to go out the LLC route or register yourself as a legit business in Canada or any other part of the world, then what you want to be able to do is add some validity to the ownership piece of it. And the fact that we have a standing agreement with all of our artists that, you know, for example, I don't own their tracks; they own everything. All they're doing is giving me permission to share it with the world. And so, therefore, if it means helping them to claim ownership over that, then so be it, because that becomes a positive part of being connected, right?
Right. And it's unfortunate if you're an artist that not only do you have to write songs, pay for recording, pay for any associated costs with playing live, but then you got to put on your business hat and take care of all of this other stuff too. And that's quite a burden. And I would think that has probably discouraged quite a few people from actually completing the process. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean it's crazy. It's crazy when you so for example, Keith has a question here, and he said, "Sorry, he's working off his phone." um, SoCan doesn't use the codes; they generate their own code and list your song with that generated number. Yeah, and the same thing exists. You can put in the publishing information on your metadata that you're also registering your music with SoCan. Um, but as we were talking about last week, some artists that are registered with performance rights organizations are having problems going into venues to play where the PRO wants to go into the venue and collect royalties on their performance.
Crazy. The thing with SoScan using their own code, do the other PROs do the same thing? Attach their own code?
I'm not
Because
sure. I'm not sure how BMI works or ASCAP or
yeah,
CSAC or any of
yeah.
those.
Because I could see it getting to the point where everybody needs a different code, and that just makes it. And it's got to be standardized, I would think. You know.
Yeah, I mean, typically, SoCan is typically affiliated with Canadian music.
Okay.
BMI and ASCAP are typically affiliated with American music. Um, I'm not sure what performance rights they're using over in Europe. I'll have to ask Brian and see what his thoughts on that are, in terms of do they register with PROs over in Europe or not? But the reality is that they're not even doing their jobs. You and I talked about this last week, that performance rights organizations do not do their job collecting on behalf of artists, and not everybody has the ability to pay it. I mean, I think they ran into that a while, way back when they wanted to try and simplify it for clubs. So, for example, let's say you're playing canned music in your club in between the band at night. So when there's no live music, you're playing canned music. They were expected to make a playlist and submit that playlist,
Yeah, I've heard of that.
right? And so what they decided to do was do something differently. And what they decided to do um, was come up with prorate. So they went to the club owners and everybody else doing this and said, "Oh, you know what? We'll charge you a prorate. You can pay us so
Yeah,
much a month,
yeah,
and we'll distribute that amongst all of the artists."
yeah.
So then when artists were getting, a check from SOCAN for like $12, you know, I think one artist I know that was working with a major label, they got a check one time for like $4. Crazy.
And now with jukeboxes and venues being hooked up to the internet, all of that is taken care of. You just got to pay a yearly fee, a licensing fee.
Yeah, and some people, as Keith was saying, aren't even bothering with barcodes anymore because of the way that sales are occurring over the internet, right?
Right.
Like for example, Frank that we had on the show last week, their new album, It's Not the End. You can order the physical copy through Bandcamp, and then he gets the notification and sends out the CD. It mails out the CD based on the order. What a lot of work that is, man.
No kidding.
It's just
Pro
like,
rates are huge in movies. Yeah, syncing up with a commercial licensing is just turned out to be another revenue stream for independent artists.
yeah, it's actually a good way. Now, oftentimes that's part of the deal, right? When your music is picked up and
Yeah.
played on shows. I know that one of the guys I'm working with, he wrote some movie music, and that's how he gets it. Every time the music, the movie airs, he gets some royalties that come up as a result of that, because he's responsible for writing the soundtrack on that particular movie. So
Right, right. And all kinds of stuff. Man, games, movie trailers, ads, whole bunch of sponsored ads on all the socials, stuff like that. So it's just a matter of getting your foot in the door and finding the right process, and you can start realizing a little bit of revenue from getting your music licensed,
yeah, so
which is
like,
not bad.
so going back to what I was saying about Frank releasing this album, this is his first solo project album by Syndicated Madness. It's Not the End. They decided that initially they were going to use somebody to inform them when someone wants to buy a physical copy of their music. So they get the notification from Bandcamp, but then they have to mail it all out. It's a bit of a nightmare,
Yeah,
right? And then the person pays for the postage, and the postage varies, and blah 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 blah. We started working with a third party vendor that actually produces the CDs on demand and mails them directly to the customer.
that's cool.
Yeah, they take their slice off the top, they send me the difference, and then we split it with the artist.
Do they
Um,
do they do the same thing with vinyl?
Yeah, they'll do the same thing with vinyl. Vinyl's really pricey though.
Right, right. Yeah.
But here's the cool thing, because it's on demand, you don't have to pay for the pressing. They have the plates there ready to go, and
Mhm.
it's all pressed by robotics,
Right.
right?
I
And
do the same thing with T-shirts and merchandise for the station. I don't have to carry any. Somebody orders something, they print it out and send it. I don't have to
yeah,
carry any inventory.
Shopify is doing the same thing now. Like a lot of people are going to Shopify. There's
Dickify.
there's one that we use here in Canada, RPM, which is called Rock Paper Merch. And one of the guys I work with is friends with the owner of that, and because it's a Canadian small company, we try to support it, right? So we're looking at doing that. Yeah, here it is right here. So Keith's sharing a thing here. 2005, he supplied a tune for Biker TV. When using the SOCAN calculator, it said I should have made about $1,500, 4 partial plays, and 1 whole play national. They sent me a check for $10, and then they play stupid after that.
Wow.
Yeah,
Of course,
I
that
mean,
was in 2005. I would hope things would be a little bit more organized by now.
here's the thing. Unless you have somebody out there chasing it down, right? There's a good chance that your royalties are going to fall into this place called the Black Hole,
Hell,
Calcutta.
yeah, that's another thing is the accountability of the people in charge of your royalty payments, if they're doing their job or not.
Well, that's it, right? He says, sure, that's what people were saying in 1996.
And 1985 and
In 1985 and 1976. Here's an interesting thing. So this is an article. You've heard about black box royalties, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's crazy. You know, are you missing out on the money your music makes? The interesting truth about black box royalties, and it goes into the detail of. So there's all these unclaimed royalty. There's like millions and millions of dollars of unclaimed royalties. And I can say this now because the artist is working with our label exclusively now. So Helix, who was originally signed with Capitol Records, and then Capitol got bought out by EMI, got bought out by Universal Group. They are always finding, just by coincidence, royalties that belong to them that were never claimed.
Huh. And who's responsible for that?
Well, I mean, somebody was responsible to reach out and pay them because they used their music, but they never got paid for it. And yet there were royalties available to them. And I think it's this whole convoluted process about what happens. And I agree with you there, Keith. Unless one has a name, they don't care. So if you're just an average Joe musician, artist out there, they likely don't care. That's one of the reasons why I think that the route we're going and having artists publish with us, it gives us way more control over the music in terms of where it goes, who downloads it, and if somebody wants to use it, then they can reach out and talk to us about using it and actually, make some sort of a contractual agreement with the artist about using their music.
Yeah. I found this website a couple of weeks ago. I had a conversation with this gentleman, and I could actually share the screen if we're talking about performance rights organizations. Where
do
you
have the article? Where is it?
I got the website right here. So this is for independent artists. If you want to license your music through them, because the problem with a lot of this PROs is the people at the top get paid royalties and the people on the bottom get zilch. They get nothing, even though their music might be playing somewhere. So this guy is focused solely on independent music creators, and yeah, I can get rid of that.
It's all good.
What was I saying?
So he's focused on He's focused on
There we go.
music creators, right?
Right, and so you can license through him, and then stations that play the music, of course, obviously, get royalties from that. And he's also very, very cost effective for broadcasters.
Yeah, I mean the interesting thing there is that, as you know, some radio don't pay royalties for music plays because they don't have a budget for it.
Well, it's incredibly expensive. I mean, the cheapest package that I've seen so far is you got to pay $5,000 a year, and then whatever you don't use, you get credit for.
Right.
So a lot of broadcasters, they can't even touch that.
But
And so
that
I think, All Track kind of offers an alternative to that.
but for you guys, that means if you were going to do that, that means selling advertising. That means now commercial free music no longer becomes commercial free.
Well, yeah, if you want to do that.
Yeah. And that's bullshit. Right?
Bullshit.
It's like watching a YouTube video and halfway through the video there's 2 commercials.
Oh, that drives me nuts. I can't stand it.
Well, that's the cool thing about the video, us posting the videos up on our website. There's no commercials there, right? We're not.
Yeah,
I am
that's a good
never.
idea.
Yeah, I'm never going to sell advertisements on my website ever.
Yeah. Well, you can put a banner up there, can't you?
I could put what?
A banner for somebody's business. You could put a banner on the website, like
Yeah,
probably sponsored by Joe Blow Sewer Service or something.
yeah, I could probably put a banner, but I'd never use advertising to in the middle of something like that. I mean, how stupid is that, right? A commercial in the
Yeah.
middle of video. Wow.
What if Mr. Bigwig from Polaris Snowmobile sent you a letter and said, "I'll pay you $1 million if you let me put commercials on your videos."
If they let put commercials on my videos, I'd say no.
Would you really?
I wouldn't want to put commercials on videos. No, that's just bullshit. Like someone
$1 million?
not even for $1 billion.
But what you could do now is you could share that money with your artists that you put the commercials on, and they would certainly appreciate that.
Yeah, I could do that.
I know there's a whole debate there, but I commercials on videos just drive me nuts. I can't stand it.
Here's another one here. He says a Russian site posted his tunes. And when I emailed them about it, I got happy to take it down. No dough though on that one. So when we're gonna maybe do a show one night, and there's a guy that his name is Dean, and he's one of my friends on Facebook, and he's always going into detail about these black box royalties. He'd probably be a good guy to have on the show to talk a little bit about, because he has a really good understanding of what they are. But when you think about the different royalty types, so you got mechanical royalties that are paid whenever a copy of a song is made. For instance, when a record label presses a CD of your song, you were due to get a mechanical royalty, right? For public performances, that's the PROs. Performance royalties are paid whenever music is performed publicly. Then you got synchronization royalties. That was what you and Keith were talking about there a minute ago, for TV, commercials, sync fees. But again, some people don't come through on that either, right? Then you got master generated royalties, also known as recording royalties. They're typically paid in addition to synchronization or public performance royalties. See how convoluted this starts getting?
Yep.
And then you got print music.
Way more control over the music.
Now you've got print music. Print music royalties are a royalty paid for the sales of printed sheet music, which can take the form of musical notation and or lyrics. So here's a funny thing. I was going to post lyrics for an artist's album on DistroKid. So I thought, well, I'll try this just with one song set of lyrics, and I posted it, and then I get this back. Oh no, you can't do this. It can't have this. It can't have this. It has to have this. There's like 50 million stipulations about it, right? I can publish the same music on my website, publish the lyrics, and I get none of those error messages. And if somebody wants to print off the lyric sheets to sing along with the artist's song, they can do so at their heart's content. Like, seriously, when did this all have to become so convoluted?
Everybody wants a piece of the pie, man.
Yeah. Fuck yeah. Like it's crazy. It's crazy. Anyways, we will talk about these black box royalties. But those are unallocated royalties, or basically unclaimed royalties, whereby the publisher or songwriter can be named but cannot be traced by a collection organization. Writers who are owed royalties but cannot be found are often referred to as lost writers.
Or dead.
Well, they could be.
They could be dead.
They could be. I mean, and the thing is, I mean, do those royalties then go on to a spouse or someone who was named in their estate, right? Could be. Right? I mean, why couldn't it be?
I don't know. It depends on the contract.
Keith's got another point here. We're all going to be okay if we record it on a Tuesday after a holiday Monday on a leap year, only if 10 years after your first pubescent orgasm. Oh, man. Crazy, hey? And it's right. How well did they really try and find this stuff? And there's apparently millions of dollars in these unclaimed what they call black box royalties. The interesting thing about what we're doing differently is we're collecting the royalties on behalf of the artist, and we're only giving a couple of ways to be able to do that. So you get it all in one place, right? It becomes the place to get it all. And,
who's collecting royalties?
I am.
You are.
I'm collecting.
How do you do that?
How do I do it? Because
you're talking off of sales, right?
Yeah, off the sales. That's strictly it, off the sales. If we do that, if we do get an artist's music as a synchronization deal, then that's going to be a separate thing that gets contracted with the artist, so that there is some language that says how they're going to get paid. Right? This business of, oh yeah, we'll pay you. No. You got to have that somewhat spelled out, and there's some terms of service or some way that you spell out how you're going to remunerate someone for what they're doing, and for their art. And I think that's part of the problem. I think that's what's even happening when you look at Spotify and iTunes and all those other places, right? I mean, did you really have that many streams? Maybe you had a whole lot more. How do we know that their bean counters are counting everything the way it's supposed to be counted? Right?
Well, as far as what?
Well, as far as the way that it gets the way that it gets captured, and the way that an artist gets remunerated. So if you're if you're with Spotify, or you're with CD Baby, or if you're with DistroKid, if you're with TuneCore, Ditto, any of those others, right? When you read the fine print in the contract that you sign when you sign up to those aggregators, it says, we pay you what we get paid.
So it's their own system that's keeping track, and what you're saying is, how do you trust that system? Because they're the ones dialing up the numbers for it, right?
But they're not aggressively going after anyone to get your royalties. They're just getting
Oh no.
They're just getting whatever bone, these streaming services decide to throw them. So this is why you've got, this Swedish guy that owns Spotify, who's a billionaire, and you got artists on there who have like 1 million streams and get a check for like $100.
Yeah.
I mean, I might be a bit extreme when I say that, but it's kind of close, right?
Well, I mean, Peter Frampton, I think, out of all the streams, he earned like $1,700 or something like that. So, you're not too far off base. What I was saying was, how can you trust their system to keep track of stuff? They could be fudging the numbers real easy.
Well, this article here, it says that an estimated $4.5 billion earned in royalties, but never paid out to artist or songwriter or rights owner.
Huh.
That's a lot of money.
That should go into a central fund that collects interest.
Yeah, it's a lot of do-re-mi. I think that, if they were going to do something with these black box royalties, why couldn't they use that to create some sort of some sort of a grant system where young and upcoming artists could use that grant money to get a start. So, you got some budding artists that want to get into the studio and record, but don't have the money to get into a studio to record.
True.
Right. So why couldn't you do something like that? Why couldn't you establish some sort of a fund that's used in a way to fund young and upcoming artists, or any artist for that matter, that meets the threshold to be able to get access to that grant money? And then
or they could throw old Bob a bone here, and so I could buy like a PreSonus preamp channel strip to make my voice sound really extra sexy special on the air. I mean, I'm not asking for much.
I ain't asking for much. Yeah, just give me some tush.
Just give me a PreSonus channel strip.
PreSonus channel strip. Well, it's interesting because I'm using a Focusrite
Large one.
Scarlett Focusrite, but I'm not able to use it in this fucking studio environment. This software doesn't allow me to process it the way it does. Otherwise, I could use all kinds of effects in my voice, and I could make it sound really deep and sexy. Anyway,
one of my DJs just got himself a Shure SM7B under my recommendation, and his first live show was last night, and he sounded really good. As a matter of fact, while I'm talking about Ike Arumba, he has a very storied career as a attorney in Seattle representing musicians, and we should have him on the show sometime because he has got so much inside information and solutions for artists.
Get him on the show. Get Ike on the show.
Yeah.
We'd love to have him.
Yeah, the guy's got stories till the end of time. And
we were just saying that I got a couple of artists that I'm working with. They're well steeped in the world of music, and I want to get them on the show as well. And we'll have an outrageous story night.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
Yeah, we could have an outrage, which is actually true, like a true outrageous story night, not like the shit that was made up on the movie The Dirt.
Right.
Ozzy snorting
real life.
Ozzy snorting
real life.
Come on, God. Keith likes my. Are you saying you like my 58 that I'm using? This is a vintage 58, by the way. Very vintage. It's only ever had the windscreen changed once on it. Bob, I saw an article. There we go. This Standard. Interesting but true article about the crap that's on a windscreen of a microphone.
I got to tell you a story about that. Hold on. Well,
Uh-oh.
as soon as I unwrap my cord,
Are you tangled? I think that's a good idea for a show, Keith, to do stories from signed and unsigned bands and then compare the stories. No doubt about that. That would be kind of fun to do.
this mic right here,
Oh,
the
yeah.
old venerable
SM57.
SM57.
Yes.
Well, a few months ago, I was lamenting the fact that I didn't have an SM57 to record drums with. And one of my friends, one of my very old friends from a long time ago, popped in and he said, I've got a 57 with some of Nate's DNA on the windscreen. Now, Nate passed away a couple of years ago, so we always fondly remember stories about Nate. When he said he had Nate's DNA on this windscreen, I said, send it. And he did. I got it a week later. So now I have the Nate Winger Memorial SM57 on my drum kit.
Oh, very cool. That very cool.
Nice.
Is that the one? Is that who sent you that? Chris?
Paul Winger sent it to his
Oh,
brother, sent it to me.
Very cool. That's a neat keepsake. I have
Yeah.
I actually use a 57 on the snare as well.
Yeah.
And I'm happy with the response. It's interesting though. Placing a 57 in various places around or over the snare, you can get a completely different sound.
You can. Yeah, it's there's such a big debate on miking drum kits that you'll never ever get two people to agree totally on the correct way to mic a drum kit.
Yeah, no doubt about it. No doubt about it. There's an article somewhere, I found it way back. The producer that used to produce the Beatles, how he mic'd Ringo's drums.
Oh yeah,
Like,
it's got to be interesting.
it was simple, like three microphones, one on the
Yeah.
kick, one on the snare, and one overhead.
I've done that. I've done that with one overhead and one large diaphragm mic further out in the room,
Right.
and it sounded okay to me. You know, as long as you didn't try to push it too hard.
It's interesting. We were doing some recording here in the studio a while back, and I have two overhead mics, and they're positioned slightly different because I want to catch the edge of some of the cymbals and also catch other pieces of the kit and blend them in with everything else. And I'm looking at one of them and it's like flat. And I'm like, how does that happen?
As he stretches.
And apparently they're not supposed to die. They are not supposed to die, but this puppy died. Like, it is completely,
Really?
yeah, it's completely dead. And I can't.
Is that a condenser?
Yeah, it's a condenser mic. It's a pencil condenser. It's also got interchangeable heads where you can put an omni or unidirectional head on it. See, the head unscrews off this puppy, and then you can screw the head on it. But for whatever reason, this one decided it was going to die. Now, if memory serves me correctly, there was a guy in the studio one time.
There was a guy
playing my drums, and he knocked this microphone over, and I wonder if that was the beginning of its demise.
Oh, really?
Because it landed on its head.
That might have knocked something. This here I got a pair of these, my very first mics. They're Shure condenser mics.
Nice.
They're pencil mics like that.
Yeah.
And these were so old school, you put batteries in them instead of phantom power.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. They still work. I beat the shit out of them.
These are Apex 1858s. And everything I've read about them is they're like one of the battle standard overhead mics. And they even have a roll off where you can roll off to minus 10 dB on these, or you can run them flat. There's also a frequency roll off where you can kind of change the response on it. Plus you have the interchangeable heads where you can go from omni to unidirectional, right? depending on what it is you're trying to mic with it. But I thought these things were indestructible, and this thing is dead. Like I have to
Dead.
Well, it works tiny little bit. You take the interface and crank it out. You get a ton of white noise, and you get a little bit. If you talk up to it like this and scream in it, you get a little bit.
Wow.
Yeah, it's so weird.
Wow.
And I'm
Have
like,
you taken it apart?
I took it apart, and I cannot, for the life of me, figure out what could be wrong with it. And
Nothing obvious.
and when I did a search on it, nothing comes up because they say they're basically indestructible. These should last
Probably darn.
for years and years, but apparently not.
I wonder if the diaphragm got munched or something.
Well, here's the interesting thing about this. So, diaphragm mics, the worst thing that can kill them is smoke and dust. And any level of smoke has, as you know, has oil. And for a while here in the studio, I was using.
Here it comes.
Well, it wasn't from the
Here
pot.
it comes.
We weren't smoking pot. What it was, I was using one of those essential oil atomizers.
Oh.
And the essential oil atomizers, the idea behind essential oils is that, they can change energy levels, right? And so when we were recording, I always put this particular one on because it's supposed to increase everyone's energy level, right? Unknown to me, maybe, who knows? Maybe the oil off of that screwed this thing. Who knows?
Well, it should have fucked up the other mics too, though.
I have no idea. Disagree. Worst thing for a mic is a powerful vocal. Tear them up every time. Yeah, and it could have been that, Keith. It could have been something like crazy that screwed this microphone. But anyway,
I always like the people that walk up to a microphone and blow into it.
One that really gets me is when people walk up to a microphone and they tap it. Ugh. I mean, really rap it. Donk, 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 donk. Like, fuck off. Don't do that. Anyways, we can talk a little bit more maybe in future shows about these black box royalties, and I'll see if Dean might be interested in coming on the show and talking to us about it, because I know he's been a producer. He's been, he's done a lot of different things in the music industry, and he might have some wisdom to share. I don't know if there's any conventional wisdom to be had around this whole thing. But black box royalties are a real thing, and we're talking about $4.5 billion that end up in this dark hole of Calcutta. We don't want that to happen to independent artists, and we're trying to come up with a different way of remunerating them, and that's why you have to hear. Time for the shameless plugs. That's why IndieTunes Records has been changing the format of our website and turning it more into a downloading and streaming platform that all you're going to ever find there is independent music. So either completely unsigned artists who do everything DIY, or those that want some assistance from people like myself to publish their music. And my co-host Bob Minter from Code Zero Radio. This
week sponsored by Heil.
By Heil. There we go. By Heil. You got a weather show to do tonight?
Yeah, I still have to plug in the weather.
All right. Well, I'm gonna let you go here. We're running out of time, and I don't know if this I can play that track again. Maybe you should play that track as an outro. What do you think? Would that be
the what?
The track that I played to start with, the one by Bone.
Boone.
Red Rocket. It's interesting. I know. I was thinking when I saw the name Red Rocket, it reminded me of something. I won't say what it was, but if you have a dog, you know what I'm talking about. A male dog. There you go. The Red Rocket. All right. Well, listen, thanks for joining us tonight, everybody. We're going to do an outro here. My co-host, Bob, any parting words to people?
Don't sweat the petty things, and don't pet the sweaty things.
That's good advice, my friend. Well, and to the rest of you, happy hump day and have a great rest of your week. Hopefully the weather is going to be nice again. We had some record killer weather the last couple of days here. Holy crap. Weather in the 90s.
Yeah, it was hot here too. It was so hot.
Oh man. Your balls were sweating in the shade.
They were.
Yeah, I
I
know.
was chafing.
Crazy. All right, we're gonna head out and we're gonna here's some bone for you.
See the